Hey, what's going on? Welcome to Golf Lovers United, where we discuss golf the fair way. And what an explosive week we've had this week with the one, the only world number 3, Mr. John Rahm, officially signing on the dotted line with LIV Golf in a Max Homer predicted Letterman jacket, which, of course, we're probably all wanting the next time we go to an event. I know that Ben and Jay, my esteemed co-host here, will absolutely be wearing those, regardless of the temperature where Jay lives. He's going to be sweating out just to get out there looking cool in that Letterman. It's been a big, big week, which is why we've put this bonus episode out. We are going to talk specifically about why John made this jump. Because let's be honest, August 2022, it didn't look like he was going to. He had a few bones of contention with the LIV Golf League. But here we are a few months later. And well, everything has changed. And as we approach the December 31st deadline for the framework agreement, well, maybe we'll start to think about what else could change. Maybe we'll start to revisit some of those player scores that we put out over the last few weeks. We shall see. Now, before I bring on Ben and Jay, I just need to give a quick shout out to the GLU brand ambassadors. We've actually got a few more trickling in every single week now. We've got our fantastic LIV Golf forecasting and Red Harrington, but we're joined today by Mr. Kevin Dignan. Thank you for joining us. You're not only going to get access to meetups and to exclusive invites to any events that we do, and in the future early access and bonus access to content, but you're also going to be the first to know about the guests that we have on and have your opportunity to have your say when it comes to those guests as well. So if you do want to get involved, you can become a brand ambassador at glugc.com/support. And you can also listen in your podcast app of choice or on the old YouTube, which is beautiful because you get to see our faces. Speaking of which, Ben at Golf Lover UK, Jay at Pro Golf Critic. I bet you two and those fine faces of yours, I bet they've not beamed so much since your first Christmas as a child this week. How are you guys feeling about, I don't want to say a prediction because I don't want to blow smoke up your ass, but let's call it a prediction coming true. How do you guys feel about it?
Which
Feeling
prediction?
Oh, here we go. This is where I knew this would start now. He's got his bloody Twitter head on. Here we go. He's going to ask me to check the timestamps later, Jay. I can't speak.
No, I gotta say, like, this has been one of those weeks, like I posted on Twitter, like there's been periods of time where LIV Golf has sort of up-leveled, and honestly, like all of us that have been sort of the bleeding edge, sort of early adopters, like it's been really exciting because it's like, look, we've expended a lot of effort, a lot of time because it's something that we're passionate about, something that we like, something that we think is actually great for the global golf ecosystem, and I'm really, really excited and pumped about it. We've got a lot of negativity over the course of time, but weeks like this, they make all that negativity worth it.
I think you made a really good point, and something I'd like to address is that I've had a lot of negative, angry, nasty tweets over the last 2 years. I've probably got 250 people blocked who've made threats or spoken to me in a way that I wouldn't tolerate it face to face, not going to tolerate it online. And I think what you said, I think, Jay, is that we really like the LIV product. I love the PGA Tour. I love golf. I've talked about the PGA Tour leadership letting us all down. I've made it very clear LIV should have been replaced with WGCs 2.5 years ago when it was originally proposed. Doing those WGCs, it being a 12-event league, 10-event league, whatever it being, and everyone playing together, it would have been superb. We're not there. It's not happening. But I find it odd that people can't understand that we just like the LIV product. People say, like, I still get, oh, you must be a paid-for bot. I'm not a paid-for bot. There's photos of me playing golf with my daughter, videos of me and my daughter, videos of me going on my 40th birthday trip to Nairn and Dornoch and Castle Stewart. And I think this is an inability to understand, actually, we just really like the product and really like what's going on. So I think it's important, and I've said this, and I'm going to say it again now. Now is the time where we come together. If you don't like LIV and you don't like what we're putting out on Twitter, I'm sorry. I love the PGA Tour. I hope that in the next 2 years, everything can go back to a way where everyone's playing together and lives in the ecosystem. PGA Tour's in the ecosystem, the major. I hope we can do that. But we're either going to do it together or not at all. The division's now got to go. I've played a part in that with some snarky tweets. Doesn't need to happen. And I think that as a community, if we want to be together, we can be together. The next 6 weeks are going to be really tough for the PGA Tour stands that hate LIV. They're going to have a really bad 6 weeks. It's going to be dreadful, but don't lash out. Just appreciate that we can all make this work together in the next 2 years. It will happen. The PGA Tour will exist and LIV will be the premier team product and whatever else it's going to be. What it'll look like, who knows, but it will happen. So let's all just get on now. Come on.
It's a huge thing, that. And I think the Rahm signing is an interesting inflection point for this, because I want to pick up on that. Jay, you mentioned about the bleeding edge early adopters that you guys are and were, which I think is admirable and I think it's fantastic. And I was there, not as publicly as you guys, but keeping very close eyes on it, watching everything that goes out, and just as a golf fan, just doing that, albeit not publishing about it. What I think is worth a discussion is this inflection point, okay? Because golf is fractured. There's absolutely no doubt about that. You know, there's a huge fracture in golf right now. The only way for golf to repair itself is for those fractures to disappear. For that to happen, everyone needs to get closer together. For that to happen, everything has to become more interesting to more people. All right. So what I'm talking about here is that, you know, honestly, the LIV Golf team aspect, I'm just not that interested in it personally right now. That's not to say there's anything wrong with it. It's just I've never been a big team sport guy. I don't really follow that much soccer. I gravitated to golf because it was the 6 inches between the ears. That was the interesting thing for me as the individual aspect of it. So I say that representing the people that do love the heritage of the PGA Tour from the standpoint of team stuff simply does not exist outside of the cups. We know about that. But, I see the reasoning for team sports. I see the logic here. I see why it is important. I see that, look, let's be honest, business-wise, financially, if team golf can work regularly, there's a pile more money in it. In order for that to happen, people like John have to come along. We can't have interest in teams if the people on the teams are just people that I'm generally not interested in. So that's quite a long way of saying this feels like a bit of an inflection point for LIV and for the PGA Tour. But I want to go straight at this. I think we've got to do it early. And I know, Jay, you're going to go deep on this. We've got a future episode that you as a listener need to bookmark in your diary. This is more than likely going to go out the 22nd of December. It's going to be a big episode where Jay gives us a real deep dive on the machinations of LIV, on some of the things that we may or may not know about, but actually some of the things that really matter to the business aspect of golf. Okay. But what for now has changed for John Rahm? I've got to get it out early. What has changed since August 2022? Why the difference? And let's assume that we don't have to mention the money, because obviously the money. But what's changed to move him along?
Let me grab that, because I know you're going to do a deep dive, Jay, and you're going to do this 1,000 times deeper across the whole of golf. John Rahm didn't just get money. He didn't just get a check. He spent time and spoke to at length captains, leaders within LIV, leaders within the PIF, with Yazir, and understands the opportunity to develop and bring in a legacy, which he's talked about. And I know there's going to be people that are just going, oh, it's all rubbish, it's just about money. Well, okay, yeah, he's got a load of extra money, and of course money matters. But John Rahm also does care about a legacy for Spanish golf a legacy for junior golf, and these things matter. And he's now got the ability, he believes, to build something. Now, people can scoff at it if they want, but it doesn't make it any less true. And that's something that I'm trying to get my head around, that just because people don't agree with it doesn't make it less true. He does believe in that, and he truly does believe there's going to be something that can be developed that builds a legacy. And when we talk about legacy, Mark, you talk about legacy and tradition within the PGA Tour, which since 1968 it's been there. But let's not forget, in 1968, when Jack Arnold set up the PGA Tour, they did something very similar. They wanted the control and the money. It's just happening again. And that's why the PGA of America, they have an issue, because that's what happened to them. This time round, we've got a new breed who are building a legacy. Jack and Arnold, they built their legacy in 68, obviously before for Arnold, but they built legacy in 68 moving forward. These guys are building a legacy now. If you're the first people in the first 2-3 years, and you create a team aspect, you create a new competition, you create a new format, what probably will go to either this year, maybe not, but next year definitely to 60 players, 20 groups of 3 going out in shotgun. They're going to create that. That is going to be their legacy, what they're going to create. And this is not a 2-year plan, 3-year plan. This is a 10-year game.
Yeah, that's huge. And just, I know you're going to jump in, Jay. I just want to kind of add to that, the Sevi side of it as well, because I can see both sides of this. You know, $600 million is a hell of a lot of money. But what if you're someone at 29 years old with a family, what's it going to buy you that 100 million that someone like John Rahm can already access? You know, there's no day-on-day difference financially with that one. But at the same time, it's a huge number over 3 years. I do see both sides of the money argument. From a Sevi perspective, which I think is the thing a lot of people invoke about the legacy, he was ostracized from the Ryder Cup. He was ostracized. You know, you had people like Bernard Langer fighting his corner for many years to get him back into the fold. And I do think a lot of people forget that element of it as well, which I think is just very important to, I think, just have a mental bookmark around. But Jay, sorry, you were going to say something.
No, I completely agree with everything you guys are saying. I'm going to take a little bit of the other side in this. There's obviously a push and a pull here. There's obviously the pull of LIV and sort of everything going on there, and the conversations John had with all of the right people in and around LIV Golf. That much is very, very clear. That's, you know, part of the reason why his mind, got changed. The other part to this is obviously the push from the PGA Tour, from the leadership, from look, I've had it on very, very good authority, pretty much as good authority as you could have on this, that it's been sort of laid out to John, all of the ways the PGA Tour has been lying to its players, the way it's been lying to its top players, to its rank and file players, lying to them about the financials. And I think that the Tour's financials are way, way worse than anyone that's currently out there in the press and in the public. And this also ties into all of my frustrations with the media and the golf media that we've discussed at length. Like, I got tied into this stuff very, very early on, that a lot of the stuff that had been pushed by the PGA Tour and its media partners and its leadership about the state of the financials, the state of everything going on internally at the PGA Tour, I knew a lot of that stuff was flat out lies. There's no question. There's no question about it. I think that a lot of that stuff is starting to bubble up to the surface. I think that more and more of this information is getting out to the players, and I think that is there's a direct correlation between this information going out to the players and the floodgates opening to players wanting to go over to LIV who are currently in negotiations, who have already signed deals. Like, this stuff is not coincidental. So there's a lot of people that are tied into this stuff now. I think that we've seen this totally flip in the last week in terms of the way people are going to talk about this, the way players are going to talk about it, the way that the media is going to have to start covering this. A lot of this information is going to start getting out very, very soon. So look, that was a very, very heavy influence into the John Rahm situation. Like, this isn't just LIV sort of pulling him away from the PGA Tour. It's also the PGA Tour has pushed him. And there's so many fractures within the PGA Tour leadership right now. Like, I can't even go into all the details now because it would literally be a 3-hour podcast. Like, it's so crazy, some of the stuff going on there. John knows all of this stuff. Rory knows a lot of this stuff. It's part of the reason why he left the PGA Tour board. There's a lot of fractures going on right now. It's very, very dire times for the PGA Tour, unfortunately. And again, we'll have to see how the next few weeks play out. I'm optimistic. Hopefully, the stuff happening now kind of pushes everything along. And look, like I said from the beginning, I'm rooting for the merger. I want it to happen for all the reasons that we talked about. We need everything to start coming together. It's kind of now or never, to be quite honest with you. And I'm totally on Ben's side here, in a previous podcast, basically saying that, like, we've got basically 3 weeks now. I don't know if it's actually going to get extended now. So there's a lot of stuff that sort of has to happen here in the next few weeks. I'm very interested to see how things happen. But look, there's going to be more signings coming here in the next week or two. A lot of the names that we've talked about are certainly on the way. Some of the names that we initially were sort of down on, going to have to flip those ratings a little bit. So yeah, and I haven't even started talking about the investment that's potentially coming into LIV as well. That ties into everything that I just talked about as well.
That's the exciting part. So remember, for you listening out there, and you GLU brand ambassadors, tell your friends, because of course Jay is going to go deep on all of that side of things on the 22nd of December. Stick it in your diary. It's going to be a big one. It's going to be a good one, because no one goes deep like Jay, which is, of course, what it says on your clothing, I'm sure, at work. No one goes, no, that's probably doesn't have it on there. No. Congrats on the new job. Hey, look, all banter aside, Jay is going to go really, 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 really detailed on this stuff like only he can. And one thing that you mentioned there, man, is you alluded to other players. Now, we've seen some names floated around. We've seen Tony, Mr. Finau, who's shooting ridiculous scores with Nelly Corda this weekend as we're recording this. We've seen one Tyrrell Hatton, a Ryder Cup star, being bandied around over on Twitter as well. But the thing that I'm interested in is there are certain people who are in what I would probably call a Goldilocks zone, where everything is just right. And a couple of them in particular, potentially major winners, potentially Ryder Cup winners. So, Ben, Jay, are we going to have to change any scores? Are we going to see some people moving to LIV that, the Rahm floodgates have now opened? Maybe we didn't expect these people to go. So what's the take on that situation right now?
I know Jay's going to go hard on this. Jay, we're saying hard and deep all the time for you. This is ridiculous, right?
I'm just trying to keep it simple. But
it's a Sunday night.
It's Sunday night.
Keep it
I've
clean.
had a third of a beer, boys. So we can watch this.
I've eaten the rest of that Pandoro cake I was toying with last night when I did a live on Instagram and I put a video on Twitter.
You'll be buzzing then, mate.
Yeah,
and it's like midday for you, Jay, so you're at the peak of your powers, mate.
Yeah. I think before we go into play, I just want to touch on one thing that Jay's just said. Mark used the phrase floodgates, and I am not taking any victory laps. I am not. I want people to understand that virtually every single person that likes LIV wanted there to be a joint thing, everyone together, in together. I've said it. Go back and listen to the pod. Go back and look at my podcast, my tweets. Go back at my monologues.
Boys do love a bloody good "told you so." It's like doing a podcast with my missus.
My point is trying to say that we didn't. Jay and I never wanted division. Jay and I wanted LIV to be what it is, doing what it is, with qualifying into it from the PGA. We wanted it all to be together. The people that are going to get annoyed and like, oh, so what? John Rahm doesn't move the needle. You've got to also be prepared. We know of 2 investments. One might happen in the next 2 weeks, Jay, and I know you're going to be covering this off. when people have got when LIV have already got fantastic players and they've just taken Rahm, the Finau news that we put up on the 9th of November, I know Jay talked about that was then apparently broken by the Daily Telegraph 31 days later, about Finau coming across. With players like Finau and players like Rahm and players of the ilk that Jay and I will touch on, we touched on before, investment and money is going to follow them. And teams are going to be picked up and sponsored. It is going to happen. So it's time to stop saying, "Oh, LIV don't make any money." LIV, it's not about that. Stop finding a division. Stop being derisive and finding division. There we are. Stop. It is what it is going to be now, and LIV will attract at least 3 more players that we know about, on top of Finau and Rahm. And there are going to be at least 2 investments that we know about coming into teams. That's just what it is.
Yes.
Let me pick up on that, dude, because I think that's important. One of the big challenges that I think LIV has and had, and we talked about this with Jerry, we talked about it, I think, a few times, and it actually links to what you said, Jay, about, you guys been bleeding edge early adopters from a fan zone. And when I say that, I don't just mean from a fan perspective, because I think there's a lot of people that were like that just did it through interest. But what I mean by that is that you guys were publishing things about it. All right? I think that's a very important distinction to make. The needle being moved with someone like John Rahm coming over to LIV, for me, is it's taking LIV one step further down what is quote unquote this startup journey, which is where you get your bleeding edge adopters, and we're moving now into the next phase of what I see as adoption. It's a very, very specific flow that any business, any brand, any media goes through, any content. The big thing that's missing is real accessible TV rights, which then spirals into sponsorships even further, because obviously eyes equal dollars. Let's just have a few minutes on that one, because I feel, John, when we look back in a few years' time, I feel that this signing of Rahm is probably going to be pivotal to this accessibility of LIV. What do you make of that, Jay?
100%. Like, that's the reason why I keep telling people, like, even though people are poo-pooing, like, oh my God, they overpaid for Rahm, but it's like, they actually didn't, because this is, again, like, if you can have a pivot point where you know that the floodgates are going to open after this, there's pretty much no dollar amount that's like that's too high, because it's opening the floodgates not only for the players but for these sponsors. Like, it's already been made very clear, and we sort of have talked about this on a couple of earlier podcasts, like the additional branding that's going to come along with some of these players, like John Rahm. Look, Callaway is going to have a tie into his team. Like, there's no question about it. They're going to have probably a minority stake in his team too. I think that these are the things that we've been talking about for a while. And to be quite honest, I didn't think it was going to come along as fast as it potentially is. Like, I'd always been projecting out, 2025, we're going to start seeing some of this stuff. It's pretty clear that we're looking at this happening way, way, way faster than even I thought. Where Rahm has his brands and sort of sponsors that are going to tie into his team. I think Tony Finau's got his sponsors. Look, Tony Finau's very, very tied into one of the owners of the Utah Jazz, who is, look, I can promise you guys, like, he is going to be very, very heavily involved in LIV. He is completely bought into this. I'm going to say it now. This is another thing where you can look back on this podcast in 3-4 months and be like, oh my God, you guys were so ahead of this thing. So it's like, we see these things because, look, we all have experience in business. We all have experience in startups and things like that. It's like, we see exactly how these things come about. I think that the floodgates are going to start opening to more and more sponsors, to more and more, heavy investors with really, really deep pockets. Just like we kind of saw in, TGL, but it's going to be, a different type of investor. It may not be the same folks investing in TGL. It's going to be people that have investments in these players that want to start building these teams in a very specific way. And it all sort of leads.
Jay,
Yeah.
Tell me that Rahm isn't going to call his team Los Toros and get some money out of Red Bull.
That's actually a great point.
He's obviously going to call it Los Toros. He's obviously going to call it the Bulls. He's obviously going to do that. Like if he doesn't call it Los Toros and have some sort of angular bull shape with a red background and black bull, I don't tell you how I understand what might happen, but bookmark that one.
We're time stamping this one. Screenshot this one, Ben, because if it doesn't happen, I want to see you eat that Majestics hat.
But the point, if he doesn't call it Los Toros, I'll be amazed. If it doesn't end up being red and black, I'm not being held to the fire on that. But
he said he wasn't.
It lends itself, doesn't it?
He also said he was staying at the PGA Tour, Jay. So I mean, love the guy, but
good point. You got me on that one.
1-0 mark.
I'm going to tweet that one out. A timestamp that one, boys. No. I think it's an interesting. There's a couple of things actually. All joking aside, someone like Red Bull is actually sort of perfect for LIV. Like the brand is very, very interesting. Which leads me on to the next point that I was going to get to, which is, I think, from my perspective, when I talk to anyone that doesn't generally like LIV, down at the club, right? It's my local club. It's a golf club. They're not generally going out to the Ryder Cup. They're not generally going out. They're not going to the Open. They maybe do the British Masters once every 3 years. They are not plugged into this. They are plugged into usually the rough on a winter's morning and just losing balls after balls. And all they do is turn up to play the golf and have a beer. The point I'm trying to get at is, look, if someone like Red Bull comes into golf, and it's a great example to make, actually, that is very different to the Honda Classic, to Memorial, very different to the John Deere. The vibe, the brand, the feeling of LIV is still so young that do you think that all of these business machinations, all of these business discussions, all of these investment ideas are just too far away from the average golfer? Are we? Two questions on the back of that for you, Jay. I think to start with, is LIV still too young to have seeped into the psyche of the general club golfer that isn't intermediate, isn't on Twitter, isn't doing that? And then two, do you think John Rahm moving shifts the needle with that?
Yes. So, the thing with John Rahm, and I've seen a lot of polls about this and sort of, various things asking if John Rahm sort of makes you more likely to watch LIV. And while those polls say, it was mostly negative, but I do think that, look, these things are on a curve. Like, it's not just going to jump from 20% to 80%.
But also as well, sorry to interject, but also if you, that's on Twitter or online. If you sent a postcard to my golf club members, the results would be so different, mate.
Yes. No, it's true. Like, I feel like, and I play, club golf, and I know a lot of the guys at my local club here in the Bay Area. And look, they've learned a lot of information about LIV from me, because the thing is that and again, this goes into, and I hate to keep bringing this up because, look, I know this is like a horse that I've beat to death, but it's still so relevant. Just the piss poor job the media has done in terms of getting LIV out there, explaining how it's going to work, talking about all of the plans for the future. Like, basically, there's golf publications that I know a lot of my colleagues rely on for that information, where this information has not been out there and accessible to them. It just hasn't. So it's like, I feel like I have to be the evangelist, which is why I feel like my club is probably the most educated on this stuff, because I have been evangelizing this for 18 months. So, but that's sort of a very, very small sort of part of the equation. I think that the media, they do play such an important role in all of this. And I hate to say that because I've been dogging them for the last 2 years, but it's like they need to step it up. And I do think that they're going to start to realize that's going to be where their bread is buttered moving into the future. And it's not going to be overnight. There's these little incremental steps. There's these little things where LIV is up leveled. All of a sudden, it's like you start talking about top players. You can't talk about top players without talking about the guys at LIV first. So like now when we're talking about top players, you're talking about John Rahm, you're talking about Brooks Koepka, you're talking about Bryson, you're talking about Rory, you're talking about Scotty Scheffler, you're just talking about Cam Smith. All of a sudden, like the top 4 out of 6 are at LIV. So if you're talking about professional golf, you have to start talking about LIV.
I'll give you a 60-second analogy on that, Jay, that backs up what you're saying. Not an analogy, what's an anecdote. It's a Sunday. My words are all jumbled. Derision and division mixed up, and now it's analogy and anecdote. Anyway, anecdote. I was with someone today playing golf with them. We had a lovely time. I shot 89 with 4 doubles. It was atrocious. Oh, can't keep it on the face of the planet. You keep saying that,
Ben. Every time we record, I shot 90 again. You're like, I don't know.
You just 90.
Cool if you're 20, dude.
Shut up. No, it's not 90. Right. Anyway, I think last time we spoke, I shot a 79. So, but let's not forget that. But right. I don't know. Let's bookmark that one. What was I going to say? You've distracted me. I think one of the biggest problems LIV have had, and I've said this the whole time, is that people don't know where it is or how to find it. I don't think LIV's advertising of how to watch and where to watch has always been the best. I think a lot of it has been on social media. If you're not on social media, can't use it. This person, I won't say their name, isn't a social media user, maybe goes on once every 3 to 4 weeks. They're like that type of social media user. They said to me, oh God, I'm now going to have to find how to watch LIV. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I didn't not watch it before because I didn't like it, but I just couldn't be bothered to find out how to watch it. What's important about that statement is that he is now one of many hundreds of thousands, I imagine, who've gone, oh, Christ. I was apathetic. He wasn't watching the PGA Tour because he'd had enough of that. So he didn't watch any golf last year. And now he's going to bother to find out how to do it. And I think that's the important thing. There are going to be hundreds of thousands of fans who go, okay, Rahm's gone over, Finau's gone over, 2 more players have gone over, maybe 3 have gone over. Oh, there's 6 brand new players gone to LIV. I now need to go and find how to download it, how to watch it, and what to do with it.
Yes, and I think that a lot of golf fans are creatures of habit. And this is something that, like, this is the reason why in the United States, the PGA Tour being on the major networks here, like they're guaranteed to get certain numbers because people are just, and this is, something we have talked about previously, Mark, is that, you're sort of conditioned to at a certain time on Saturday and Sunday, you're turning on a particular channel because you're expecting to see golf on that channel. I think it's going to be fairly soon that we're living in a world where you do that, and there's going to be LIV Golf on your TV instead of, or in addition to, the sort of traditional events. So, and again, this is where these like incremental things, this is why it really had to be a 10-year plan. Like after 2 years, you're still sort of building, and it's like the picture doesn't really start to become clear until you're in year 3, 4, and 5. And we're only finishing year 2 at this point. So it's like there's going to be these little incremental steps that continue to happen. Again, the Rahm thing is a linchpin in this entire process. The next 2 weeks are going to be a gigantic seismic shift. I'm actually going to loop you in really quick. I was texting with my dad, who I've been keeping kind of in the loop on the Rahm stuff. As soon as he saw the Rahm news on ESPN, which is what he watches like 24/7, he texted me one word, and it was earthquake. Because he knew how big it was, this move, and then seeing it on ESPN, and then seeing people talk about it in a particular way. And they're talking about LIV in a completely different way than they were the same time last year. So again, this is where you have these incremental steps, and I think that we're going to continue to see this. I think it's only going to be on the rise. More and more people are going to watch. More and more people are going to get it. We are going to continue to evangelize what's going on, because I think that there's just such a lack of information out there that we're going to have to be some of the people to sort of get it out there to the public. So I think all of those things are really, really important to this whole process.
There's always a point in any startup's journey, regardless of the size of the business, regardless of the type of the business, whether it's a media business, content business, broadcast business, or a tech business, whatever. There's always one thing that pushes the iceberg above the water, and you just start to see the tip of it, and everyone that knew it was there knows what's going on underneath the surface, but the general public start to see it surfacing, and it feels like the John Rahm signing is the breaking of the water, to kind of phrase that. And it's one thing, two things from our brand perspective, from the Golf Lovers United brand perspective. There's a reason that we're called that, and it's, you know, it's very easy to feel, looking from the outside in, that actually this is a LIV podcast. But it's the nature, genuine, and that's cool. Like, if it is, it is. If it isn't, it isn't. Whatever, that's cool. We know what the mission is. But that's been the news. There's not been that much going on with the PGA Tour apart from the things that just aren't amazing. It's not, there have been no new tournaments going on. There have been no new major sponsors going on. There have been no new major players breaking through, with the exception of maybe like a couple on the DP World Tour, and obviously Ludwig. But that's just been the landscape. It's just been the landscape. So I think from a GLU perspective, it's all about that. Jay, shoot, go on. What were you going to say?
Completely agree. And this is something that I've been trying to crystallize on Twitter a little bit more. Like, this whole process is not just about LIV Golf. I want to make this abundantly clear to everyone. And this is something that I'm going to tap into on the podcast in a couple weeks. There's a grander plan at play here that doesn't just involve LIV Golf. Now, look, the way things are going now, like, things may be shifting in a way where maybe LIV Golf is the sort of premier league here pretty soon. That being said, I think that there's also, you know, tremendous value in a lot of the legacy products on the PGA Tour. In my ideal world, I see these two things coming together to elevate the sport. That's the chess move that LIV has been, that Phil's been talking about, that Greg Norman's been talking about. All these people have been talking about LIV Golf being a very, very vital chess move in terms of moving the entire sport forward, because the PGA Tour on its own was not going to do this. I want to make this abundantly clear to people. The PGA Tour, if they had no competition, we would have been completely stuck in 2019, 2020 pre-COVID golf. That was not that interesting. Let's just call a spade a spade. Like, Tiger Woods was on the decline. A lot of the big names, older names, were getting older. The sport did not have a lot of juice to it. It was not going to grow. LIV Golf was the catalyst needed to push golf into the future. And there is going to be a much, much larger play here that's going to see everything come together with this global series of events. We've only previously had the 4 majors as like the events where we see all the best players come together. I very, very strongly believe we are going to be living in a golf world where instead of 4 events, we're talking about 16 events, where all of the biggest players in the world, all of the big names, come together on a more regular basis. And they do this on a global scale. That is the path to growing professional golf, not only in the United States, but also throughout the world. That's the path. That's what we're on to. LIV Golf is the catalyst to sort of getting that going. And that's part of the reason why we've been so passionate about LIV, because we see a couple years down the line, like, we know exactly how this is going to play out. Maybe not exactly, but we have a good feeling. Like, because only logically it says that there's very specific things that need to be done in order to move the sport forward that the PGA Tour on its own was never going to do.
Yeah, it's a catalyst. And I think as LIV continues to find its own product market fit. 'Cause I genuinely don't think it's quite found it yet. Which again, it's 2 years old. It won't. Product market fit is all about finding the product that appeals to the very maximum amount of people that you ever will, which is never 100%, but it's still massaging certain things, the team format, the way that the transfers happen, the way that the PR and the marketing works, and the brand and the positioning, and product market fit is this entire journey. Now we are going to stick a pin in it in just a few minutes, but Ben,
we're in that life cycle real quick of a startup. They came to play with a minimum viable product. That's what they did.
They did.
And the product's getting better, and as you say, they're now going to expand on that and grow that. And the one thing that we've all seen from being live is there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and nigh on thousands of children running around with Majestics, Aces, Stingers, gear on. They are the future of that growth. Mark, you hit it on the head. That's what they're going to grow into. But people need to understand they came to play with a minimum viable product. It's a startup. That's how it works. And now it will grow from there. People expecting something 18 months old to be a finished article. Like, that's just lunacy. It's just a stick to beat something with because you're desperate for a stick to beat something with. To produce what's being produced in 18 months, and that qualifying event this weekend was phenomenal. I've loved watching that qualify. I know for you, Jay, difficult hours-wise, you've got to get up early to watch that within Abu Dhabi. But for Mark and I, it's absolutely superb. We wake up in the morning, 7 o'clock, there's some golf on, and by the time we get to mid-afternoon, we can actually do some work.
That genuinely does never happen. And I think that's an interesting part of the accessibility, because like you mentioned earlier on, Jay, my Sunday nights were getting switched off. And I think just the final takeaway with this is that the whole concept of LIV was the catalyst for change. And it feels like the Rahm signing is probably something that we'll look back on over the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months as the catalyst for elevation, not only for LIV, but for change across global golf. And it feels like Brooks was a huge character, Bryson was a huge character, but let's be honest, they're not the needle movers across the entire range of the golf industry and the world of golf that John Rahm is right now. That's fair to say. Love the guys, but John Rahm just feels like the biggest thing so far, of course. And I just feel like we'll look back on this as that catalyst for elevation. So we are going to stick a pin in it in just a second. But any final thoughts, any closing thoughts from you, Jay? Any closing thoughts from you, Ben?
Yeah, a couple things really quickly. I want to say so much has happened this past week that a couple things have been totally lost in this whole equation. I got to give a shout out. A couple quick shout outs. Harold Varner III. He's coming over to my Aces. Very, very happy about this move. I want to thank Peter Uihlein for his service. He's a great player. He's one of the people that I follow closely at LIV. I think he's going to be a great addition to the Range Goats. The Taylor Gooch move over the Smash. We kind of have been touting that one for a month or two as well. So, look, there's been a lot of movement. We're going to have plenty of time to talk about this, but I wanted to give that a quick shout out.
All right, I love that. Love that. Ben, any parting wisdom?
Don't mix up derision and division. But no, we need to remember that it's now we come together or not. John's gone over, Tony's going over. We know 2, 3, 4 more that are going over. There are going to be 2 big sponsors / investors going into 2 different teams. Let's all realize the next 18 months, 2 years of landscape is going to create something. And we can all be friends together and do this together. And if you don't want to be, you don't want to be. But I think you can see how we are and the way that we've been. And I'm excited to see what the next 18 months of LIV produces, because I think the product's really good. I buy into the team stuff. I know, Mark, we laugh because you're not quite into it yet. I love a team game. I love a team sport. Like, the one thing that golf always lacked for me was team sport, which is whenever I play, I want to play in a pair or a 4 or a 6 or an 8 against another 4-6, 2, 4, 6, 8, whatever it might be. I love team golf. And I think that we know that kids love teams, and I'm really excited to see what happens in the next few weeks. with the creation of a couple of new teams and new players going in. And I know Jay's going to do his deep dive, and I know with work Jay's away a little bit, but Mark, maybe we've discussed, you and I can touch an episode where I've got a couple ideas of how some of that team stuff's going to get built out across the world and some things are going to happen. So I'm excited to talk about that again one day, or again, more fully one day.
Sounds perfect. Yeah, I think it would be interesting to dig into how the team element could maybe find that product market fit that it needs, where it can attract the 100% of its own addressable market. You know, you're never going to get every fan, but let's get everyone that you can if we're really doing this. So I think that'd be a great episode to do. So thank you so much. This has been, I'm not going to say the words emergency because it's not an emergency, and I'm not going to say the word pod because every time I see the word pod, it makes me want to hit myself in the face with my 1-iron. That is right. I have a 1-iron. It's mainly for hitting myself in the face with. But thank you for joining us on this bonus episode where we dug deep into a bit of logic around the John Rahm LIV switch. We're going to go deep this week with one Luke Corner. What a fantastic interview this is that Ben and Jay put together with Luke that is coming out on Friday this week. And then to finish the year strong, we have the one day only pro golf critic diving deep into the background of LIV and the future beyond that. It's going to be a really, really, really interesting episode. So follow us over on Twitter for all of the insights at GLU Golf Club. Get over to YouTube, search Golf Lovers United, or tell your friends that they can listen in their podcast app of choice or at glugc.com. And a huge thank you to our brand ambassadors. If you want to join the fan zone, you can do at glugc.com/support. Until the next time, much love. Stay cool. Stay off Twitter. That's sound advice for everyone these days, especially if you've had a drink. Until then, look after yourself and enjoy your golf. Bye-bye for now.